degree in biology from NYU, Bill embarked on a professional career in sales. After a tenacious job hunt, Bill developed a career which led him to senior management roles at small and large private and public medical device companies. He's a serial entrepreneur who plays an active role in every business he owns, including Can-Do Enterprises, which provides executive coaching and business consulting services, in addition to motivational speaking and appearances at schools and other institutions to aid in the campaign to stop bullying in the U.S. Most recently, Bill created Rocky and Maggie's. Named after he and his wife's dogs, Rocky and Maggie's is a pet supply business with both an e-commerce platform and a brick-and-mortar location in Houston, Texas. Future plans include product development and support of rescues around the globe. Together, Bill and his wife Jennifer also lead interesting and uniquely public private lives. They're featured on TLC's docudrama, The Little Couple, which follows their personal and professional lives, and it will soon reach 100 episodes. They've also appeared on television programs including Oprah, The Today Show, Good Morning America, Dr. Oz, Anderson Cooper, among others. Please welcome, from The Little Couple, Bill Stein.
All right. Well, I got my exercise done for the morning. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Parker, distinguished guests, and most importantly, all of you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today, and we're here to kick off the 4th annual Disability Awareness Month in Houston. This month, the theme is Inclusion Treasures Diversity and Builds Community. When I think about inclusion, I'm first reminded of my experience that I endured as a young man fresh out of college. After graduating from NYU, my next big move was onto a career. I'd hoped to get a job in pharmaceutical sales. Like most college grads, I went home, moved back into my old room, dusted off the sheets, and put my head to the pillow. Next morning, I grabbed a pen and wrote up my resume. I sent that resume out to, 50 companies, from Merck and Pfizer to small little regional pharmaceutical companies in the tri-state area in New York. Thankfully, I got a lot of first interviews. I drove around from Baltimore up to Massachusetts, chasing that dream job. Unfortunately, after I get in the car and examine what I did right and wrong and expect that next interview to be coming, it never really came. I sat at home, waited for the phone to ring, and I waited and waited and waited. Eventually, I got on that next interview, the next first interview, and the next one, and the one after that. I did on occasion get a second interview from here from time to time, and when I did, they weren't all that great. One in particular stands out. When I went to a second interview with one of the big pharma companies, excuse me, they reviewed my accolades, discussed my career goals and my future, and the interviewer simply stated that I didn't have the look of a pharma sales rep that they were hiring. To say the least, I was a bit discouraged. But it wasn't the last one that ended this way. One company told me that they didn't think I could actually do the job. They said that I might have a difficult time carrying in the products. I thought it was pretty easy. You carry in a box and you have the food catered. Another person told me that I might not be recognized because of my stature in the medical office, the doctor's office, which I thought was kind of ironic. I think that I'm the one that sticks out amongst all the suits. So in any case, eventually I did find that first career position. It was for working for a medical device company as a sales rep. After my preliminary phone call, the director of sales invited me in for a formal interview where he offered me the position. He was fearful that I'd be grabbed up by some other company with such impressive credentials. Apparently that was my very first sale. After forging a very fast friendship, he shared the backstory about the day that I was hired. He shared with me that as I showed up, he saw my hair, only my hair, along the windowsill outside his door. And I went inside the waiting room, filled out my application, and the admin assistant came running into his office, said, "Your 1 o'clock's here," and he's a midget. Well, needless to say, he was not all that happy with the term. He could tell that by her tone, not necessarily the word itself, that it was a bit derogatory. So he explained to her that, barring any unforeseen complications, that he'd be offering me the position today, and that if she or anybody else said anything derogatory that would dissuade me from taking that position, they could pack their bags and go. So now, I thought that spoke volumes to the character of what was then my boss, whom later in both of our careers we became business partners in my first small business adventure. While that story has a happy ending, tenacity and a bit of luck helped me land that first job out of school. And while many disabled people are able to retain gainful employment, far more are living in poverty and unemployment. Some legislation has been put forth to aid in giving people with disabilities a chance to succeed and be a part of the community. In 1973, a year before I was even born, the Rehabilitation Act was instated, prohibiting discrimination on the basis of disability in programs that were conducted by federal agencies or that received federal funding. It required employers to provide reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities, to make programs accessible, provide effective communication to people with hearing and vision disabilities, and to make facilities accessible as well. In 1990, the ADA was put in place, Americans with Disabilities Act. This legislation went further by preventing discrimination within employment and echoes similar protections provided in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The ADA is unique in the context of civil rights legislation because it requires that businesses and government do more than just cease discriminatory action. They must also take proactive steps to offer equal opportunity to persons with disabilities commensurate with their economic resources, which is to say that they need to spend, on average, about $500 to make a facility accessible and provide for an employee with a disability, on average. Since 1990, new design standards have been implemented to further grant inclusion. The ADA continues to evolve and equalize the landscape of employment and access. There is a lot to be proud of, but there's still much to do. Today, 41% of adults with a disability are employed, while 79% of adults without a disability are employed. That's a pretty disparate number. Furthermore, people with severe disabilities, such as blindness, learning disabilities, paralysis, or deformed extremities, that number gets even smaller, with only 27.5% of those types of folks, those people with those types of disabilities being employed. And when it comes to earnings, again, scary numbers. People with severe disabilities earn on average 42% less, which is a shame. So the ADA, while it's in place, still needs some help being reinforced. And as you might expect, since income and employment are much lower, poverty rates are much higher. Approximately 28% of people living with severe disabilities live in poverty. So how can we, as a collective of disabled people, make more noise? We often fail to see them, people with disabilities often fail to see themselves as sharing common issues, impeding their effectiveness in working together towards increased accommodations. Herein lies a concomitant challenge and opportunity. A person who is blind and a person who is short are both considered severely disabled according to this standard. As individuals, it's difficult to relate to each other's disability, and because of that, our message is fragmented and weakened. We need to acknowledge that common hardships of unemployment, bullying, and exclusion can actually help unify our message. Through a united message, a unified message. The disabled population of now more than 40 million people in America will have a much more substantial voice that will hopefully garner more significant progress. When it comes to the workplace, studies, including one done by DuPont for over the past 40 years, have shown that an inclusive employer is actually a better place to work. Employees with disabilities provide equal or superior performance compared to their non-disabled counterparts, which means they're actually better assets to hire. They're more loyal. We stick around longer. We like our jobs, we're grateful for them, and so we stay. And we provide a positive influence for our workers around us, which means that we spread the good word that it's possible to accomplish goals, that you can persevere and overcome, and that we can share those types of positive influences with our peers at work actually makes for a better environment. So given the opportunity, communicating with people about disabilities also helps remove these preconceived notions that people have and help reduce the likelihood that people with disabilities will be excluded in the future. One last thing to touch on is bullying. It's been something that you see in the news a lot today. It's viral. It's epidemic, and it's prevalent among people with disabilities. In fact, people with disabilities experience it about 5 to 6 times more than somebody without a disability. Children with disabilities in particular often are victims of bullying. The effects of bullying can be far-reaching, adversely affecting performance in school and extending to self-confidence issues as an adolescent and as an adult. I hope the ADA legislation will someday include guidance to raise awareness and help reduce bullying officially. Thank you very, very much for having me today, and I thank you very much for doing your part to pave the way for a better future for this and future generations of people with disabilities. Thank you.